Let us begin. Hello everyone, and welcome to my first sponsored video. And so thank you so much KEH Camera for sponsoring this video as well as this series of videos, because we're going to be making one of these once a month. So I am really excited. And so thank you. For those of you who don't know who KEH or KEH Camera is, they are the original reseller of professional, collectible, and everyday gear for camera lovers everywhere since 1979. And I know, because I have access to my algorithms, that most of you weren't even born before 1979. And so they've been around for a very long time. They buy as well as sell used camera gear. They fix it up, they appraise, and make sure they give you a fair price, and they sell at a fair price. And they keep cameras off camera shelves or bookshelves so that they're not just trophy pieces, but they're in the hands of creators to make beautiful art. And so thank you so much KEH, because this is a video that I've been dying to make for 20 years. 20 years, because as much as I love photography, I also love gear, and we like to talk about gear. And so what was in my camera bag 20 years ago? And unlike a lot of my colleagues that are sane, and when they saw the digital era coming, they sold off all their professional gear that they use for work, I kept all of it because I was always a film lover. I was a very late digital photography adopter, so I kept all my gear. So this kit is 90% of what I had back then is what I have right now. So let's start with the very first thing, is basically the camera bag, right? So here we go. This is it. This is the Lowepro Orion Trekker. Now, for a lot of people today, looking at a backpack bag like this looks normal. There's nothing, what's so special about this bag? Well, back in 2000, and in fact, I bought this bag in 1998 for my honeymoon, because on my honeymoon, camera girl didn't want me to be running around with a camera bag, right? So she wanted a bag that looked more discreet, and so I bought this bag in 98 for my honeymoon. And back then people really didn't know that this was a camera bag, so now this is very common, right? On the bottom half here is the actual camera bag portion of it. You just unzip it, and bada bing, bada boom, there is all your camera gear here. And what I liked about this bag as well is when I did travel, I'd actually would hide, oh, what's this? Oh, a Nikon lens cap. I don't know how it got in there. Back here is where I would hide my money and passports, or stuff that I wouldn't access that often is back here, because it's closed up like a clamshell like this, and it's down inside here. All right, so let's start with my main camera, which is my Minolta 9XI. Now this is a weird looking camera. Even back then, most pro cameras back then did not have a pop-up flash, but this did help make the camera stronger, as well as have a larger glass pentaprism, so it's a lot easier to look through. And this was my #1 camera, and one of the things I really liked about this is that it had a 1/12,000th of a second top shutter speed, which was never surpassed by any other camera, but it was matched with the Maxim 9, which came out this came out in 92, the Maxim 9 came out I think in 99 or 98, and so it was the little brother to this one here, but this was the OG Maxim 9 or the Dynex 9, depending on where you lived in the world. So this was my main camera body that I took with me. And what was my main lens? Was a 35mm f1.4. Now look at this beautiful piece of glass. Look at that. Now it's not huge. It is a 55mm filter thread, but it is quite large for 35-1.4 in terms of this way here. But this is a really, really nice piece of glass, and it's heavy. It balances really nicely on the 9XI. Now this was my main camera. 35mm is pretty much what you would shoot on a regular basis, and because it had a 1/12,000th of a second top shutter speed, I can shoot wide open in brighter light than most cameras could. Most topped out at about 1/8,000th of a second. So this was my main daily kit right here. Now another lens that I had is the 28-70 f2.8. Now this is also a very beautiful glass, 72mm filter thread. I should have cleaned that, but this is a cool zoom lens because it was an internal zoom, which was very rare back then. The Canon's 28-70 I think a 28, it actually zoomed out, and when you went to 70, it actually zoomed back in. Nikon only had a 35 to 70, but it was also telescoping. Minolta had this here, and unlike the competition, both the 35-1.4 and the 28 f2.8 had a circular aperture ring, so the bokeh was just beautiful. So this is when I needed a little bit of versatility when I was in a car, or if I was at the beach or somewhere where I need to kind of quickly shift into different focal lengths. The 28 to 70 f2.8 was a beautiful lens for me to use. Now another versatile lens is this 50mm f2.8 macro. It's a 1:1 macro, and you can even see the numbering here. So as you go to 1:1, it really goes out far like this. Now a lens like this is great because you can use this as a short telephoto lens, but as well as a macro lens. And so you'll see in some of my photos that I took, Okinawa where I'm from, there's beautiful flowers and things like that, or even like bugs, like the little soldier beetles or whatever they're called. And so I wanted close-ups of those things, so you needed a macro lens. Pretty much what I had in here, I probably had room for maybe one more little item down here, and I probably just stuffed it with film. Let's zip this up and look what is in the top half of this bag here. Oh, actually, even before I go inside, on this outer pouch here is one of my favorite cameras of all time. Can you guys guess what it is? Can you guess what it is? Oh yeah, this is the Ricoh GR1. Look at that. And again, like the camera bag, I bought this for my honeymoon, and this is definitely in user condition. I use this, and look, the LCD is still working too, which is something that often dies with this, but I bought this in '98 for my honeymoon in Vegas with Camera Girl. But this camera was basically like what your iPhone is today, right? When you see how big this camera is, there are situations where you don't want to have this out and about, and you want something small and discreet like the Ricoh GR1. And so basically loaded this camera with black and white film. This was my personal camera. Family, friends, things that I didn't want to share with other people other than inner circle people. So this was awesome, and I would even use this inside the planes, and I always put it in that front pocket, or I actually did use the belt clip here, so I always had this with me whenever I needed it. All right, so now let's go into the main section here in the top half. And so I usually have this stuffed with film for the day, but as well as whatever I needed to carry. So I didn't always carry all of this every time I went out, but you definitely need a nice flash, a nice speed light. I use the 5400, and so this is a fully programmable flash. You can bounce it and move it in any direction. And the reason why I brought a flash like this is because, like I said, this camera body does not have a built-in flash. When I go to Japan, we often did family portraits with grandma, my mom, and my uncles and stuff. So you needed proper official photos. And so having a flash like this was really important. So a point and shoot for like casual photos, proper portraits, you use a large flash like this. Now another camera that I brought, which might seem really odd, is my Polaroid Lan camera 250. And I think I still even have film in this thing here. There you go, look at this here, and the instructions down here too. And this camera here, the reason why I bought this is because often when you take a photo, you want to give someone a photo right away, and that still is a problem today. Like, how do you do that? Well, you use the new Fujifilm Instax cameras, but back then Polaroid was king, and so I would drag around the Lan 250 because I like to be able to manually focus, and there's a little bit of exposure control on this, but I love the film, the peel apart film, the 667, the 669, but this was my main camera that I used to give photos away or pictures that I took that then I immediately put into a scrapbook. Because before the age of blogging, we all had journals, and then you just sticky paste or whatever photos into your journal, and having an instant camera like this was great, not only as a way to give pictures away, but as well to keep for yourself. And finally, this camera I actually bought in Japan at the time, but this is that part of that kit that I said is not part of the OG. This is the Fujifilm GA645ZI, or my American friends would say ZI, but this camera here, I actually had the 645i, so it was just the fixed, I think 65 or 60 mil lens, and so this camera my 645. I ended up selling it, but now looking back, I wish I didn't sell it. And so I have this 645ZI, but this was something that I used for proper portraiture. I took some portraits of my wife and my sister, who also came along with us in 2000. They had kimonos put on properly, and then I wanted to take some nice portraits, as well as portraits of my grandma and my mom and things like that. So I use this camera. It also has a pop-up flash, even though it's a medium format camera. It has a date and timestamp, as well as your exposure that is imprinted in between the frames. So that's why I really like this camera. And so that's everything that was inside this camera bag right here. But as well, I actually do have some of the film. So as I was mentioning, 664, this is the Polapan ISO 100 film. I don't have a lot of these left, but this is the original 667 ISO 3000. And this is what I used mostly with the Lan camera 250, because at ISO 3000 you didn't need flash. Even when it was dark, you'd still get decent exposures out of this. This is probably one of the packages that I brought back with me from Japan in 2000. And as well, in the Ricoh GR1, now this is not an OG film box. Back then it was called 400CN. It is Kodak's black and white but C41 chemistry version of the Ilford XP2. So between these two films, this is what I use the most, because it was the quickest and easiest way to get your black and white film process without having to take it to a specialty lab. You could just go to like any 1 hour lab and get this done. As well, for portraiture, I would use Portra. And you can see these even say sample, because of course at the time I was working for Kodak and I always had access to these, and people are probably thinking, what is 400 UC? That was ultra color. I loved using this film, and this probably is the original film that I brought with me to Japan. And finally, the main film that I used for this trip in terms of my personal photography, not like family and friends, but my own personal project, was E100 and E100S and E100SW. And again, this is of that era. You could see the expiry there in 2001-03, and so this probably came out in 99. Pro film had about a year or so of expiry, so this film probably was with me in Japan. And so I thought I would share with you some of the projects that I had mentioned. One of them is that I love writing. I was an English lit major, and I still kind of have a journal or diary, and you would take something like this with you and you just constantly just kind of jot what you are doing. And a lot of these are kind of personal, so I'm not gonna show you what I wrote, but show you some of the pictures here. This is one of my photos here. I'm gonna try to avoid the glare here. This is the photo of the cockpit back in the day where you can easily go into the airplane cockpit, and I asked if I can take a portrait of the pilots, and I took one picture and I gave it to the pilot, and I took another photo and I kept it for myself. So that's the beauty of being able to use these instant film cameras. And this was the first night that we arrived. This is my the tatami room and my uncle's house. You can see the guitar in that back corner. It was my cousin's guitar. But that was the beauty, that I could instantly take a photo while I was there, attach it, stare at the photo, and then do my little write-up of that day that I had enjoyed. And so that was the beauty of having my Polaroid Lan camera with me. But my main project was to shoot with slide film. And those of you guys that shoot slide, you know that it's not easy. And also, when you shot slide back then, you didn't scan them and then view them on your computers. Either they were mounted on a slide mount, or you just kept it on the roll and you didn't really know what to do. So what I decided to do was to create I'm gonna try to avoid the reflection here, sorry guys. So create a contact sheet here, and so I don't know what happened here, but create a contact sheet of each roll that I shot, and then whatever I liked from that roll, I would create a print from that roll. And so I did that with every roll of film here. And let's just see, some of the more interesting stuff was more, I guess, closer to what you would consider street photography. Maybe one day I will rescan these photos to be able to share with you, but I think I took about 12 contact sheets, so 12 rolls, which isn't a lot, but again, I also probably shot about 20 rolls of T400CN or XP2 with me, and then tons of photos with my Polaroid camera as well. So thanks again for sponsoring this video. Again, like I said, I've been dying to share with you what's in my bag from 20 years ago KEH helped me to make it happen. And so, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, go check out KEH website. It's a very easy website to navigate. They have a buy and then they have a sell section. And if you want to sell, you just go in there, you type in what gear that you have, what condition it's in, and then they will then email you back a quote. And as well, if you want to buy something, super simple. You just type in or you go into the various categories. They sell everything from cameras as well as the accessories like tripods and flash units. And so they pretty much have everything that you could want as a starter, but as well they have some of the more higher end premium cameras that you can find there, and it's great to go and visit there. I have links down below, so if you're selling, they'll give you 5% more. If you're buying, they give you 5% off if you use the codes down below. And so thank you KEH for making this video happen again, and look for once a month KEH sponsored videos where we will talk about gear. So down below, let me know what camera gear that you would like to buy, or what camera gears that you have that's sitting there that's not doing anything that perhaps you would consider selling to KEH. Because if you send it to someone like KEH, they will appraise it, give you a fair price, and then they will fix whatever they need to. They will clean it and then have it ready for the next person to be able to create beautiful photography. So thanks for watching. Wait for my next video for next month. Let me know what you want to see in your next video. And until then, happy shooting.